For the last few years, AI has lived inside a familiar box, the chat window. You ask a question, it replies. You request a draft, it produces one. Useful, impressive, but still passive. The next phase of AI is trying to break out of that box. It is called the AI agent. An agent is not simply a chatbot with a better personality. In the practical sense, an agent is a system that can work through a multi-step task on a user's behalf. It can read an instruction, decide what information it needs, use a tool, inspect the result, and choose a next step. The difference is subtle but important. A chatbot answers. An agent can pursue an outcome. Imagine asking for a comparison of 3 software vendors. A traditional chatbot might give you a template for the research. An agentic system might search official documentation, compare pricing pages, organize the results, flag missing information, and return a draft report for you to review. It still needs boundaries, but the work is beginning to look less like a conversation and more like a workflow. That is why companies are suddenly competing to build agents. The building blocks have converged. Stronger reasoning models, the ability to work with text, images, and interfaces, and tools that let AI search the web, read files, call software services, or interact with a computer screen. OpenAI describes an agent as a system that independently accomplishes tasks with a model, tools, and instructions. But this is not a magic recipe. The agent only becomes useful when those pieces are designed around a real task. The hype can make this seem inevitable. In reality, agents are hard to make reliable. When software follows a fixed workflow, every step is planned in advance. When an AI agent chooses its own next step, it has more flexibility, but also more ways to make a mistake. It can choose the wrong tool, misunderstand an instruction, chase irrelevant information, or complete part of a task while missing the real goal. That is why the best agent systems often start smaller than the headlines suggest. Anthropic makes a distinction between workflows, where code defines the path, and agents, where the model dynamically directs its own process. Its recommendation is simple. Start with the simplest system that works, then add autonomy only when the task truly benefits from it. This matters because the most valuable AI worker may not be a completely autonomous digital employee. It may be a supervised assistant that handles the repetitive middle of a workflow. It can gather documents, create a first draft, summarize a meeting, check a list of requirements, or prepare options for a human decision maker. The human still supplies judgment, context, and accountability. The next question is whether more agents always mean better results. Not necessarily. Google Research tested 180 different agent configurations and found that multiple agents can help with work that can be split into independent pieces. But on tasks that require a strict sequence of reasoning, extra coordination can make performance worse. More agents create more messages. That finding cuts through the marketing. The future is not a swarm of agents everywhere. It is a design problem. Which tasks need flexible reasoning? Which need a predictable workflow? Which tools are safe to give an AI? Which actions need a person to approve? The answers will differ for customer support, software development, research, healthcare administration, and finance. The AI agent race is therefore not just about model intelligence. It is about trust. An agent that can take action needs guardrails, clear instructions, limited access, logging, testing, and a way to hand control back to a person. In high-stakes work, the goal is not to remove humans from the loop. It is to make the loop more effective. Chatbots changed how people interact with information. Agents may change how work gets done, but they will only become real workers when they can be guided, audited, and trusted. The winners of this race may not be the systems that act the most. They may be the systems that know when to stop and ask a human. There is a useful way to understand why this change is happening now. A model by itself is a pattern engine. It can reason over language and produce an answer,
but it cannot know the current state of a company database, read a private document, or make a reservation unless a system gives it carefully controlled access. An agent combines the model with an environment. That environment might include a browser, a search index, a spreadsheet, an internal knowledge base, or a software tool. The model proposes the next move. The tool produces an observation, and the loop continues. In principle, that is straightforward. In practice, every connection is a decision about trust. Consider a travel request. Find a flight that arrives before noon, stays within this budget, and leaves room for a customer meeting. A capable system has to interpret several conditions, examine current information, compare alternatives, recognize conflicts, and return a result in a form a person can check. It may also need to ask a clarifying question before it acts. The impressive part is not that it can click a button. The difficult part is knowing what the button means in the context of the goal. This is why demonstrations can be misleading. A polished demonstration is often built around a clean environment, with predictable data and a task that has been designed to succeed. Real work is rarely that tidy. An invoice may use a different format, a customer may change a requirement in the middle of a project, a web page may place a button in an unexpected location, an internal system may contain an exception that no example covered. The moment an agent leaves a controlled demo, it has to deal with ambiguity, changing conditions, and incomplete information. The distinction between a workflow and an agent is especially useful here. A workflow says, first collect the form, then check these fields, then send the result to a reviewer. It can be fast, inexpensive, and easy to audit because its path is fixed. An agent says, examine the task, decide which action is useful, and adapt when new evidence appears. That flexibility is valuable when the task is genuinely open-ended, but it also raises the cost of testing. If the system can choose many paths, a team has to test many paths, including the strange ones.
That is why sensible teams do not begin by asking, how autonomous can we make this? They begin by asking, where is the current process slow, repetitive, or inconsistent? An agent may help assemble a research brief, triage incoming requests, reconcile information across documents, or prepare a first response. It is less suited to an action that cannot be reversed, cannot be reviewed, or can cause serious harm when the context is misunderstood. Autonomy is not a trophy. It is a trade-off between speed and control. There is also a security question. An agent that reads an inbox, browses the web, or calls business software may encounter untrusted instructions. A malicious document can tell a system to ignore its real task. A misleading web page can try to steer it toward an unsafe action. If an agent has broad permissions, a small mistake can turn into a bigger one. That is why access should be narrow by default. It is safer to give a system a limited set of approved tools, a spending or action threshold, and a clear log of what it did, than to give it a master key and hope it behaves well. Human approval is not a sign that an agent has failed. In many cases, it is the feature that makes deployment possible. A system can gather options, explain its reasoning, and prepare a draft. A person can approve a payment, send a message, disclose sensitive information, or make the final judgment. This design preserves the advantage of AI speed while keeping accountability where it belongs. It also creates a way to learn. When a reviewer corrects an output, the organization discovers which conditions the system did not understand. The agent race will therefore be won in ordinary, sometimes invisible places, in the quality of a handoff screen, in a clear record of tool calls, in a safe way to stop a task, and in a workflow that makes a person's expertise more valuable instead of hiding it. The goal is not to create software that looks independent. The goal is to create software that helps people finish meaningful work with fewer routine steps and fewer preventable errors. That is a slower story than a headline about digital workers. It may also be the story that lasts.